I want to take you down the passages and winding cobblestoned pavements of a little French town in the middle of nowhere, and the sun is really hot, and there's birds singing in the trees, and there's a little stall that sells roast chicken and roast potatoes, and in between the houses and the trees and the green grass are people selling things that come from their attic. And this is where I treasure hunt for vintage bits and pieces, vintage maps, vintage newspapers, vintage just anything, letters. Um, my most favourite thing is I've got a whole great big bundle of house deeds in the most beautiful calligraphy script. It's just beautiful. And so today, day 21, with the prompt being vintage, I rummage through my bits and pieces, and I'm going to start just by piecing a very few little bits and pieces together. And I want to show you today how you take these things, which, they would look beautiful just stuck on a page, but how you really age them and get them looking like something that is a treasure. So to begin with, I always, whenever I'm gluing bits and pieces of paper together, I always use gel matte medium, and that's because I might decide, as I do in this case, to throw loads of paint and water and all sorts of things at it, and I want it to remain stable. I want it to remain in situ and remain in place and remain stable. I don't want later on for my Pritt stick glue, for instance, to suddenly be peeling up. So these are these pieces, gel matte medium together and then sat on a radiator to dry really solid. And now what I'm going to take is some gesso that I blend with the tiniest little amount of a turquoise paint. For me, there's something about blue, a pale blue and pale brown together that just signify age from the sun, which I think is that vintagey quality. Maybe it's because, lots of fabric of a certain era was blue. Um, the dye that we used to make denim was a very popular dye, and of course, staining fingers and staining papers and all sorts of things, and perhaps that's where all these blue dyed old papers come from. Anywho, I put some gesso and some of that blue paint together, and I paint it on, and then I spray with my water spritzer and take some of it off with a bit of tissue. I then use a little bit, just a tiny little bit of the pure blue, just to make some spots on it. Again, water it down. And then I use my heat gun to dry it all off, and then I repeat the process. And for newcomers to any level of layering art, you're going to think, well, goodness, why are you putting it down and taking it off and putting it down and taking it off? All I can tell you is that you end up with these little tiny moments and layers of paint that you can only get by putting things down and taking them off, and that in fact is why you get these lovely grungy looking panels on wood, because somebody's painted it one year and then they've swiped it back and then they've painted it again. You get these really interesting marks. So that's what I do to start off with. I just kind of put this paint on, take it off, put it back on again, take it off. And then, like I said, blue and brown, right? And something that is going to give you that really old vintagey look and smell is coffee. So you're actually going to get the smell of the coffee on it as well. So I use the coffee in two ways. Firstly, I both paint a layer, a little layer of the brown from the coffee, and this is really strong coffee, 3 teaspoons of coffee to a little bit of hot water. So I paint a little bit on, dry that off, and then I use the lid of one of my paint pots to create a circle of that um, coffee, and I sprinkle on it a tiny little bit of the coffee granules. And what's going to happen is then when I heat it up with my heat gun, I blast it, I'm going to cook those coffee granules into the grunge of this little pebble. And then I cut it out and I stick it in, and that is day 21. I am really enjoying seeing all your creations. I hope you're enjoying seeing this. I want to know where you get your vintage stuff from. If you're a vintage hoarder, a bit like me, where do you go? Are you a car boot sale person? If you live in America, do you have car boot sales? What do you do? Let me know in the comments below. See you tomorrow.